viewers, Dr. Fresh here. So I got a couple of questions asking me how to prepare for the DAT in order to get to that level where you become a dentist. So you want to get through the big hurdle of writing the DAT, and then you want to get through the big hurdle of doing the interview. So let's take things step by step. First, I want you to grab a piece of paper and a pen and take some notes. I made some notes about topics that I wanted to discuss with you in order to cover everything that is necessary. So in terms of the source of information that you should be obtaining, don't stick to one source of information. First, you want to make sure that you look at every single dental school website and that you create a spreadsheet on your computer and make sure that the spreadsheet indicates, like, let's say Alberta, Western, Toronto, and like break it down and see what the requirements are, and make sure that you have taken the undergraduate courses and the prerequisite requirements that are required for those schools that you want to apply to, because every school has very different requirements and they weigh every section of the DAT, your verbal, writing, comprehension. Some people or some universities don't require you to do your carving section, whereas in other universities, like I believe in Alberta and maybe Saskatchewan, they weigh it heavily. So you want to know what you're going to focus on and what universities you want to put all your marbles into, okay? So once you've got that figured out, then, and you've got your undergraduate courses all set aside, then, and you meet the requirements, then you want to focus on the DAT. So the DAT is a large test that basically assesses your comprehensive understanding and reading and verbal and basic knowledge of biology and chemistry to make sure that you meet the requirements to get into dental school. So it's just like nothing to be worried about or stressed about. You just got to make sure that you plan it out, and once it's planned out, you can meet those requirements and those high grades that the universities want to see. The other thing I wanted to say is make sure that your GPA is at the level where the university requires you to have it at. I know the GPA requirements may have gone up in the past years, so make sure you're there, and if you're not there, look into possible ways that you can explain anything that may have happened that had impacted your GPA. So have that in the back of your mind. Universities are very understanding, so if something has happened, they'll consider it. So that aside, when you're preparing for the DAT, you want to see if you are preparing to do the carving section, make sure you include it in part of your day. So during the time frame where you're studying to prepare the DAT, there are two time frames where you're writing it. I think it's in November and in February. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while since I've written mine. So if you're preparing for the November DAT, you want to make sure that you've got at least 3 to 4 months section of time where you're not taking extremely heavy course load, so you can focus on preparing for it. Or if it's in February, you want to make sure that you're also not taking an extremely heavy course load so you can prepare for it. And you want to make sure that the beginning of your day is pretty much free, because your DAT is going to be super early in the morning. Usually it's scheduled. If you're writing the US one, you can schedule it at any time you want, but if you're writing the Canadian one, it starts at around 7 a.m. I believe. So you want to make sure that you're practicing at 7 a.m. so that you're used to waking up early enough, so that your body is used to functioning, your brain is used to thinking at that time and that hour. So if this first section you're going to be doing is the carving section, then obviously it's the first section you should be practicing every day. Buy enough soap and practice often enough to make sure that you are fitting it within, I believe, the half an hour time frame that you have to carve, and you're not going over that. So practice, and you will improve. The other thing I wanted to say is you want to break things down. So if you're preparing, so you finish your carving section, if you're not doing it, you're going to start with whatever section starts first. I don't remember if it's the biology, chemistry, or the angles, but whatever it is, make sure you do it in the right order that the exam is going to be presented in, so your mind and body is ready for that. Make sure that you time yourself. So if you only have an hour on the exam, there's a guideline that's posted online that you should refer to make sure that you know what the timelines are for each section of the exam, and time yourself. Like, have a timer on your cell phone so you keep an eye on how long it's taking you to do each section. Once you're done the questions, you want to go back to the answer page and confirm which ones you've got right and wrong, and see why you got the wrong ones incorrectly. In terms of resources, so I jotted down some notes so I could tell you. In terms of resources that I used when I prepared for the DAT was Prep 101. It was a great resource for me to go back and forth with my colleagues who are also preparing, and also to have that support network and information sharing kind of network where we would be able to be all on the same page to make sure that we're all supporting each other and encouraging each other to do our best, and we address any issues or differences and questions that we've encountered, so we're on top of our game, right? The other thing that I used was Crack DAT Pat. I bought all the books, and I believe it was from another student. You can buy them secondhand from Prep 101, Pre-Med 101 from that website. There's like another link where you can go into the books that people are selling after they got into dental school, and you can also ask them for their advice as well, since it has been a couple years since I graduated. So Crack That Pat is a great set of books that allows you to not only read up on some of the content that you may have forgotten that you've taken in undergrad, but also at the same time has questions in it, so it can prepare you kind of to start thinking in terms of what kind of questions you should be expecting. After that, after you finish all those books, then what I recommend you invest in is Kaplan software. I believe Kaplan has a really good software program where it is a little bit expensive, but once you download it on your computer, there's like a whole set of questions, and it's timed, and it gives you feedback, and it gives you answers, and you can really thoroughly prepare yourself for the exam, whether it be not just the questions, but also the angulation and different kind of folding questions that help your mind to kind of think in 3D. That will be really beneficial for you. So that's something I invested in. I recommend you do the same. It's not something that can be easily shared because it is downloaded onto your laptop, and you would be using that software particularly for that laptop. The other thing that I used was, let's see, I met up with my colleagues from time to time that I knew were also preparing for the DAT, and we would go over similar questions or issues that we were having, and we would do a little bit of back and forth in order to encourage each other. I definitely timed myself to make sure that, you know, on the exam, I know a certain section is going to be 50 minutes. I would only allocate 50 minutes for the same number of questions and try to meet that requirement and finish those questions with some time remaining, at least 5 to 10 minutes to go over the questions that I had difficulty with. Remember, when you're going through those questions, go quickly. Don't get hung up on 1 or 2 questions, because that can eat up your time, and it can prevent you from covering other questions on the exam that are very easy and you could get a really high score with. So don't get hung up on that 1 or 2 questions. If you don't remember the answer, just skip it quickly and move on to the next thing and keep going. And then when you've got time left over, then you can come back to that 1 question that was driving you crazy. The other thing I wanted to address with you was timing. So not just timing and how you prepare for the courses, but also how you use your time throughout your day. So if your exam is going to be at 7 a.m., then you better be up at 6 or 5:30 a.m. so that you're prepared and you have a routine that you stick to every single day until the day of your exam. Because the last thing you need is to go to, to do preparations like in the middle of the day and then have an exam in the morning. And while you're writing your verbal reasoning section, you have to go to the bathroom. You don't want to be one of those people who can't concentrate because you have to go to the bathroom. It's a really silly thing, but it's a big deal. The other thing I wanted to say was about stress management. So what did I do? I basically treated my preparation like boot camp. So I would have a very simple, easy to do routine. I'd wake up in the morning. I'd sleep usually 6 to 7 hours per night. I'd make sure that I get that amount of sleep. Then I would wake up, I would do my stretches, exercises, have my morning coffee, and then jump into my exam prep. So that, because I knew my exam was going to be early in the morning, I wanted to have my mindset and ready at the exact same time that I would be normally starting that exam as I prepared for it, so leading up to that exam. The other thing I wanted to say was, so stress management. I would eat the same foods. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I would eat the same foods each day because I didn't want to experiment with different foods and be that person who has diarrhea a week before the exam and not be able to focus, or get sick before the exam and not be able to focus. You don't want to have diarrhea when you're writing the DAT. So stick to the same foods, do your thing, and don't experiment with different restaurants while you're preparing for it. Now I think I've driven that point to the end, but the other thing I wanted to mention was exercise. So a big part of stress management is making sure you exercise. So what I would do is I knew that I would be finished with my exam approximately around 5 or 6 p.m. So every day, 5 or 6 p.m. after I've done practicing, I would jump into a treadmill and go to do my exercises, listen to really pumped up music and just focus on that, and kind of imagine different questions and let your mind go free. That's really a good way of relaxing. The other thing was, when I found that I got really stressed out, then I would just stop studying. I'd take a break, take a hot bath, and listen to relaxing music, and then I would make a plan for the rest of the day. So I wouldn't sit through a stressful period. If you're really stressed out, then take a deep breath, relax, walk away from the question, come back to it, and start again. It'll give you a fresh set of eyes. The other thing I wanted to say was, when you do end up passing your DAT and getting a great score, you get your application up and running to all your schools, if you will get to that phase where you're starting your interview questions. So when it comes to interview prep, make sure you have sufficient time as well, because that usually does fall in between the exam schedule. So you want to make sure that you've got some time to prep for that. It's not something you want to go into on the fly. So I would spend about at least 3 weeks to a month preparing for Definitely speak to other students who are currently in the dental school, contact them, call them, ask them what type of questions that they had and how to answer them appropriately. And there are practice books available online. I don't remember what they're called, but I also created my own practice book, so if you're interested in that, I will be able to share that with you. And if you have any other questions and you want me to answer some questions, there have been some changes to Western DAT interview questions in terms of what they're looking for their candidates. I don't know whether U of T has had changes, but so far from what I've heard, it's been consistent throughout. Feel free to reach out to me. You know my contact info. It's the Dr.FRESH on Instagram, and you can find me on Facebook. You can contact me on my email, julia.mulyar@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Okay, I hope that answered everything.